Hi, folks. This is Rabbi Kerry. Welcome to Resist Burnout. We'll give folks about another 30 seconds to call in because I've noticed people actually dial at noon, so we can get started a little afternoon. If you are noticing somehow now a bunch of us are not muted, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, and we'll get started in just a minute. Thanks, folks. Hi again, it's Rabbi Kerry. Welcome to Resist Burnout on this. If you're in New York, very rainy Monday, but at least the weather is improving. If you're in LA or Florida, I hear it's very nice. That's nice for you. Welcome to Resist Burnout, the 15-minute weekly call to restore, regenerate, and to return to who you are. Whether you're calling in every week now or it's your first time calling, I know that you know the need for this sort of call, otherwise you wouldn't be calling. Whatever your personal rituals or practices or religions, I hope and the Lab Shul team hopes that this call will be a one stop for you, one kind of way station to help you sustain your commitment and your energy to the work for justice, and to build our capacity as a movement to continue to do that sort of work. A few logistical notes. So this call is every week, every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Rhonda Rosen has been leading meditation for us just about every week now, and she'll continue to do so. And each week we'll have a different inspiration specialist. So if you have feedback, ideas, concerns, please do message me on Facebook, Kerry Chaplin. Especially if you know someone or you are someone whose story could inspire and restore us, please do be in touch, because we want to include voices of the people who participate on these calls, of course. Everyone is on mute because of the brief nature of the call, and that of course means no introductions, unfortunately, but we do want to honor this temporary community of like-minded strangers throughout the country. So please, when the call is over, I invite you to post a picture of where you're listening, whether that's a kind of sunny corner of your office, as I know Julia Smith likes to be in, or whether you're with cute animals, or with like Rhonda with your giant teddy bear from one of your children's childhood. If you're in the car, please wait till you're done driving, but take a picture of where you are, who you're with, so we can get to know one another a little bit. And in the meantime, I'll say something about who I know is on the call today. We have people from, Illinois, LA, and actually a couple of different places in Cali, Pennsylvania, I see Texas, Massachusetts, Vermont, Virginia, and Florida. I'm sure other places too, but those are just the folks I know. And there are people on this call I know who are working for immigrant rights, for the Black Lives Matter movement, for trans youth. There are academics. There's at least one healthcare administrator, at least one math wizard, peacemakers, troublemakers, rabbis, politicos, a couple folks planning to run for office, consultants, parents, and folks who spent the weekend celebrating the win on Friday, and people who stayed in bed because they were sick from working so hard towards keeping ACA. So we gather on this call to practice our own helpfulness, and we have just this one self and a whole lot of work to do with it. And now I'll introduce our meditations leader. Rhonda Rosen has been practicing meditation since '73 and leading mindfulness meditation for 10 years. She is back to lead a practice with us today that we can carry with us throughout the week, and it involves chocolate, so it's got to be good. Rhonda, if you would unmute yourself by hitting *6. Get started.
Okay,
Hi.
I think I'm on. Hi.
You are. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Okay. So this week I want to look at strategies for adapting to but not normalizing the current political climate. We must keep abreast of what needs to be addressed without being emotionally consumed and physically exhausted, without burning out. If I were to introduce a constant repetitive sound, our normal use of attention would hear it at first and then habituate to it and then not hear it anymore. For space cadets, our preoccupied folks, they would not hear the sound at all. The meditative mind would hear it each and every time and also be aware of the emotional reactivity to the sound. With that wakeful quality, we can work on the level of arousal or aversion to the sound and move towards simply hearing it as sound. You get to hear the sound but not be driven to distraction because of it. When one of my kids was 3, he became chronically ill. From 3 to 9, we needed to get a urine sample as soon as he woke up. Every morning, I was alert to his putting his feet on the floor, and I would shout, "Pee in the cup!" The whole situation called for vigilance, and I asked the pediatrician what parents do to cope in this kind of situation, and he kindly said the wonderfully obvious: parents have to adapt. This is what we are called to do as part of the political resistance. We need to pay attention without so much vigilance that we wear ourselves out. We need to notice when we're losing it and be able to work with our attention to recollect ourselves. So today I'm going to lead a simple relaxation exercise. Please note that when the more worked up we are, the colder our hands and feet. You may feel your hands and feet warm as you relax, and we can collect scientific data if you like. If you have a piece of chocolate handy, you can hold a small piece between 2 fingers. As you melt the chocolate, you are being successful at relaxing. The darker the chocolate, the warmer your fingers must be in order to melt the chocolate. It can be pretty fun. And if you want more on the science of this, just message me on Facebook. So let's begin. You get to just sit here or stand here or lay down. Your feet may be on the floor or maybe elevated. It doesn't matter. As you direct your attention to the breath at the nostrils, let your breath breathe itself. There's nothing to control. Here's the inhale, and here's the exhale, and the transition in between, soft and subtle. Just enough energy in the attention that rests so gently on the continuous movement of the breathing. Just this one thing. And each time the attention wanders, you very gently bring it back. And each time you bring the attention back, you're strengthening the capacity to return. The mind will not be quiet just because you're focusing on the breath. That's fine. You can let the mind be background noise. You can stay with the breath at the nostrils or pay attention to any of your senses in this single focus sort of way. Just listening. Or just seeing light and shadow and color and form as the eyes become passive. Just sitting here, doing what you need to be doing for your own well-being. You give yourself permission to do this, to take this time out. And if you like, you can remember a time of comfort and ease, drawing the attention internally, using memory or the imagination. I don't know what your image is. It can be visual. There can be sound or smell or taste or feeling sensation. Some folks like an image of feeling strong or potent. Mountains, trees, rivers. Some folks use active images of sledding or skydiving. This is personally yours. Drawing inside to this private refuge. And some folks like to use an image that connects them to the best of others, remembering that this is a collective struggle, remembering the energy of the group, of friends, of allies, someone who inspires you or has your back in a personal way, or maybe remembering that you are part of a long lineage of people who have fought for justice, holding the sense of collective hope and letting yourself be receptive to getting what you need. So here we have 3 techniques for returning to yourself, for taking time outside of time, for physical rest and emotional sustenance. And you can return here anytime. Practice makes the skill increasingly available. No one even has to know what you're doing. Here's my breath. What do I hear? What do I see? Can I feel the weight of my feet on the floor? You can allow comforting images to arise. These are skills we practice. Are your hands and feet warmer? Did you melt your chocolate if you were so fortunate to have a piece handy? With these skills, we can steady ourselves and harness our energy for what must be done for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, for bringing us the tools of mindfulness to pay attention without, as you said, so much vigilance that we wear ourselves out, and to invite us into regular practice that makes this sort of skill increasingly available. Calling in from Long Beach, Kim is an activist, a facilitator, a yogi, a mom, and a true friend whose son, by the way, what do you say that's broke dance? Is that break dance? How do you say that in the past tense? At our wedding, my wife and I's wedding. Lots of really cute pictures of that. Facebook tells me that one of her next projects is the hashtag Sacred Resistance in partnership with hashtag Black Lives Matter movement. Kim, thank you so much for leading us in some words of inspiration today. And if you would unmute yourself by hitting star.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Monday to each of you. So keeping with the theme of political resistance so eloquently shared by Rhonda, I consider myself a work in progress, and some of that work includes creative ways that I practice resistance. And for me, resistance is my own personal actions. For simplicity, I think of it as the refusal to accept or comply with something or someone. So after Trayvon Martin was killed, murdered in 2013, and all of the other senseless murders of Black men and women gunned down in the streets across the country, it left a really nasty scar on my mind, and I had to, and I still am, pushing through, much like my ancestors pushed through their own forms of horror. And like many of you, I was filled with anger and sadness, and I had to find a way to really make sense of the world and show up differently. So the first thing I did was to really turn to my yoga practice with more intentionality and mindfulness. And so it's in everything that I do is my first tool for resistance. And I don't mean a westernized version of beautiful poses and whatnot, but the deeper, more philosophical understanding of yoga. I find space in my mind as I focus on my breath, on and off the mat, finding compassion for others, finding ways of being of service to others, the way I interact with my family, my son, my friends. I find ways to show up. I find ways to show that Black Lives Matter. And not as a movement, but as human beings. And as Rhonda mentioned, giving oneself permission to matter. The second tool I use to resist burnout is setting an example of activism for my son. And my son is just 10 years old, and I know that it's my responsibility to create a safer and more loving world for him. So we have these great conversations about race, and he's beginning to see himself as a young Black boy in the world. And there are pros and cons to that, and it pains me to have to tell my son the cons. I remember one day he jumped into my car through the window of the passenger seat. You know, he's quite the athletic child. So as we drove off, I said, honey, I know that's fun to do in mom's car, but you can't do that with one of your friend's parents' cars because a cop or someone else that doesn't really know what's happening may come over to the car, possibly with a gun or something, to look and see if you were jumping in the car, you weren't welcomed in the car, and without asking questions, it could end up not so good. So it was heartbreaking to have to share that example with him, but that's part of the road that I'm on. So I'm creating this world for him, and he often will go with me to yoga class or to a city council meeting or to a Black Lives Matter meeting. He loves going with me to the teach-ins that Reverend Lawson is doing once a month, and Reverend Lawson is someone that works close to Dr. King, and one of the founders of the nonviolent movement many years ago. And because of his connection to Dr. King, I think it's exciting for my son to be talking with Reverend Lawson. It's sort of funny. So he sees me as a mom and as someone that's fighting to make the world better through my actions. And so my third and final tool for resistance is self-care. And I know it sometimes sounds cliche to say practice self-care, but I'm reminded by what Audre Lorde once said, that caring for myself is not self-indulgent, it's self-preservation. And that in itself is an act of political warfare. So beyond getting massages and mani-pedis, which I also love, I turn to nature, going for walks. I sometimes participate in water ceremonies here in Long Beach. After my son goes to bed at 7:30, I might read or watch a documentary. Self-care for me is also participating with Black Lives Matter, specifically being part of the Healing Justice Working Group. And this is a working group that incorporates healing justice analysis and practice more deeply into the Black Lives Matter chapters nationwide. And the focus is really to help Black folks heal amidst all the internal and external chaos. So in closing, these are my personal ways in which I practice resistance. So through yoga discipline, my own activism, and self-care. And a friend of mine said to me the other day, finding happiness, despite the political sewage we have to live in, is really the ultimate act of resistance. So I want to offer that we think about what each of us do as an act of resistance as we navigate our way in the world, remembering the journey and the path left by our ancestors like Gandhi or Dr. King or Audre Lorde or grandparents or parents, and their acts of resistance for the betterment of their families and ultimately humanity. It will look different for each of us. So remember that resistance is personal. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all a week of grounding and love.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing with vulnerability and an eye towards how we, by sharing how you demonstrate resistance, showing us ways that we might do so as well. And thank you again to Rhonda. May this week's practice lead us towards happiness, the ultimate act of resistance. And may we figure out how to pay attention without so much vigilance that we wear ourselves out. Thank you all for calling in this week, and I look forward to being with you again next week. Please remember to post a picture of where you are, who you're with, so we can get to know one another as a community. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk to you next week.